This is Mickey Lyxx, and I'm on Talking About Rock.
All right, today's guest hails from Long Island, New York, and grew up immersed in the music of legendary bands like Van Halen. Eventually, this led him to picking up the guitar and developing a style that blends melodic precision with high-octane shred. His debut single, Defiance, marked his official arrival on the scene, earning over 110,000 views on YouTube and kickstarting a stream of solo releases. In 21, he joined Holy Mother as the lead guitarist, performing in Europe and North America and opening for metal legend Doro, before eventually departing to focus on his solo project. In 2024, he teamed up with vocalist Andrew Legal for an international tour, opening for the legendary guitarist Yngwie Malmsteen and supporting Megadeth members Dave Ellefson and Jeff Young. Joining us now, let's welcome the one and only Mickey Lyxx. Mickey, how are you, man?
Very good. How about you?
Really, really good. So tell us about this newest track here, and I don't know if I'm pronouncing it correctly here, so you got to help me. Persepolis, is that correct?
We're close. The title is Persepolis.
Persepolis, okay.
Yes.
And I was reading this was inspired by the rise and fall of ancient Persian ceremonial capital. Can you tell us about that? It sounds really interesting.
Yeah, of course. So with this song, I wanted to focus on a culture that I think is very overlooked, which is the Persians, which is one of the oldest civilizations, not given nearly enough credit for how historic and how glorious it was, right? So when writing this song, I knew I wanted it to be something along the lines of, okay, ancient this or that, but I knew I found my niche with that. And I've always really liked Persian culture. I've always, really found it very interesting. So when writing this, I was like, okay, we're going to go with this. And yeah, the song tells the story of Persepolis from start to finish, starting from when it was built to the eventual destruction of it by Alexander the Great, and then just kind of rolls into a message of the Persian people, right? Of it's not just like you were the losers of this story, right? It's no matter what happened throughout history, they were always able to bounce back on their feet, right? Which I think in ways can apply to modern day. I do think the release of this song happened to be very coincidental with modern, what's happening right now.
In the world, yeah, definitely.
Yeah. I released it and I went, that was
right. That was some timing, right? Exactly.
Some timing. But no, I just wanted that too to be a part of it, right? Is like even if you look at the album cover itself, I'm not the album cover, the single cover, you'll see the sun and lion, which is a very prominent thing within the Iranian Revolution, right? It's just the push of their culture and the people themselves, right? So I just wanted to get that across without coming across as like pro-Iranian government or anything, just their history and how rich it is.
Gotcha. Are you a student of history? Do you follow history? Is that kind of why this was really something you wanted to do?
I absolutely love history. It's one of my passions. I mean, the last song I just did, Gates of Buddha, was another historic power metal song. And that's kind of what I'm going for at this point with a lot of these releases, is continuing with this historic power metal theme. One of the bands that I really started listening to a lot when I got into guitar was Sabaton. And from there, I kind of took it with other bands of like, I really love when like Maiden, sings about like Alexander the Great, or even when it's, stories like Flight of Icarus, or, for me, that's really fascinating. And so I wanted to take that approach to this because frankly, I don't think there's enough groups in this genre doing that, talking about history and, maybe once in a while, but I love when there's just a whole album and it's just focused on history. For me, I could turn on the History Channel and watch it for hours. And I know that sounds boring, as maybe for some people, because, you're a rock star, you're a metal guitar player or whatever. but it's like at the end of the day, I'm not a rock star. I'm a nerd. So it's like I like having my guitar, I like my history, and combining the two together has been really fun.
Yeah, I definitely don't understand that. Yeah, I'm definitely a fan of history myself. And just a quick side note, I remember when Flight of Icarus came out from Iron Maiden. So when that song was playing on the radio and it was a new release. So just so you know. So let's go back a little bit. What actually drove you to pick up a guitar at a very, very young age, right?
Which I think I was just surrounded by it my whole life, you know? It's my dad always had guitars in the house, and you know, even though I didn't play right away, it was just always there, and it never felt pressured. Like this is the one thing you know people always say. It's like, oh, it was in the family. Did you feel like I had to do it? It's like, no, not at all. I picked it up when I was ready, and I just kind of took it on my path, and then eventually, you know, my dad helped me out. But it was never a, oh no, you have to do this. And I think it's just always been a part of my life. You know, like been listening to Van Halen since I was like 3 years old. Been listening to Van Halen. I've been listening to Iron Maiden since I was like 5. All these bands have just been around, and especially like I grew up like I'm a huge hockey nut. I absolutely love ice hockey. So like growing up, I would play like the NHL games, and they'd throw some metal songs on the soundtrack, and I'd be like, oh, I'm so into that. I'm so into that.
Yeah, they do that with a lot of video games.
Yeah.
I've talked to different artists, and some of them weren't really aware that that's kind of a thing. I was like, yeah, that gets a lot of younger folks into some of this music. You know what I mean? Being in a lot of games and stuff like that. So the other thing I wanted to talk to you about is, and I think he probably influenced you a lot. You got to open for Yngwie Malmsteen.
Yes.
Can you tell us a little bit about that? Did you get a chance to talk to him at all or speak to him? I know sometimes, you know, artists you guys are in different areas and don't really meet up, you know, at all if get a moment to do that. But when I was reading, he's kind of influenced you a little bit as well, I think.
Yeah. So opening for Yngwie was like a dream come true. I mean, you know, it's so fun and so scary as a guitar player to do that.
Right.
You're like, okay, the guy going on next is Yngwie Malmsteen. Like I have to be on my game every night, because if I'm not, people are gonna notice right away.
People are gonna be like, "Get out of here!"
Right? Yeah. But no, honestly, it was so much fun, and Yngwie's great. I didn't get to really see him too much backstage, but every time I see him, he was always very nice. You could just get a good vibe from him. But it was such a great tour to just like, you know, it wasn't like a huge run, like it wasn't like a month-long tour, but from what we got for like 2 weeks, I think we were in the UK, Ireland, and then some countries in Europe, and it was just, oh, it was so much fun. And you know, because I'm an Yngwie fan, I grew up on, right. Like I remember the first time being in my room hearing Far Beyond the Sun, like it was just like, oh my goodness. Like,
yeah, when I started hearing his solo stuff, like I'm a Viking and stuff like that, which, you know, when he came out with that, he did some great stuff, you know, definitely very, very cool. I was speaking with one of the singers, from Graham Bonnet from Alcatraz, when they first formed Alcatraz last month. He was talking about Yngwie, and he's like, there would be no Alcatraz without Yngwie Malmsteen. He goes, the band wouldn't have happened if we didn't find him. Definitely super talented guy. There's been some reports he can be difficult to work with, but super talented, very on his game. And yeah, he was definitely groundbreaking at the time when he came out, for sure.
Definitely.
All right. So another question I want to ask you is, as a guitar player, I like to kind of concentrate on some of these things. What would you say is more important to you, or something you concentrate on more? Is it tone or style? Because I know those are kind of the two things guitarists are kind of either chasing that tone or looking for, or trying to, you know, implement their own style, or maybe a little bit of both. Would you say there's one more that you concentrate on at all, or?
I think it's more style. Yeah, I would just say for me, it's. I mean, I look for good tone, yes, of course, but I think some guitar players have been bitten by that bug where it's like they're constantly tone chasing, and some guitar players aren't so heavy on that. I'm kind of a very make-do guy. I mean, of course, you need a tone that's comfortable. You don't want to be on stage and choking on your tone, right? Where you're just like playing.
Right, exactly.
I don't feel comfortable. But I think for me, it's more of, you know, I'd rather focus on, okay, my playing, and, you know, even and the style of the guitar too, just making sure it looks good, and then the tone. I am comfortable in my tone at this point, so I just work it along. I always feel it's good, but of course, as guitar players, we are always looking for maybe a little different here and there, even if you're not huge into tone, right? Just little changes here and there. Ooh, maybe something for this, maybe a different clean sound, maybe testing out some new things. So yeah, I guess there's always a bit of tone chasing, but I'm more of a style guy myself.
Gotcha. Yeah, because I just know that's like a thing for guitarists. Some of them, like you said, are forever tone chasing. They know what they want to hear in their head, and it takes them a little bit while to get there. You know what I mean? And they want to try to as they're going along, create their own style and not mimic too much of people that they grew up listening to. But very, very cool. Yeah. So another point I wanted to kind of talk about is the increasing dominance of AI, especially in music creation, right? We've seen this all over the place. Does this concern you as an artist a lot? How much this is around now?
I'll be honest with you, not really. The reason being is because there's different uses to AI, I feel, and AI should never create your whole thing, right? It should never be like this was purely written by AI. Listen, if you're bouncing, maybe if you're using AI as like a tool, I use that word really loosely. What I'm trying to say is if it doesn't create the whole thing, like if you just use
right, it's like an enhancement type of thing.
It's kind of like, hey, what do you think? Like, do you think I should do this or do this? And maybe it shows some pros and cons. All right, cool. Maybe I'll go with this. Maybe it just puts things out a little nicer, so you're able to make decisions, right? If it aids in your decisions, that's okay, right? If you say, hey, I have decision A, decision B, kind of show me what's the pros and cons of each, because I feel like I do that a lot. Mm-hmm. If I use AI, it's very pros and cons, right?
Right.
Picking, okay, maybe here, that's cool.
Right. Well, now that they have software that'll you just put a sentence in there, it writes a whole song, it creates all the music, it plays the whole thing. It's scary. iTunes is coming out with labeling, and they're going to label all this stuff AI created.
I think it's a really good idea, but I'll be honest with you, as a musician, I feel like my ear can kind of tell right away when it's AI generated. I don't know why. I was having this talk the other day. I don't know what it is about AI generated music, but there's just this little underlying feature that I just pick up, and I'm just like, oh yeah, that's AI. That's AI. Like, you just know. I don't know what it is. Maybe it's the guitar tone's a little off, or maybe the voice is a little off. But when I hear it, I'm just like, that doesn't sound exactly correct. So that's why.
Or it sounds too perfect. I've heard artists say it sounds like overproduced and overly hyped up quality. There's always going to be a little bit of human element in there, but when it's AI, it just sounds overly produced. Totally.
Am I worried about AI? Not entirely. I mean, there's always worries here and there, and that's understandable. But at the end of the day, I don't think an AI although it's going to continue learning, there's something very authentic about that.
Right, and that's what's happening with us asking it questions, right?
Yeah.
That's how it's learning. It's learning from us, right?
That's true. It's true.
So, all right, yeah. So, I just want to get your take on that, as that's obviously a very prominent thing going out, and it's just going to be a battle back and forth for a while. So, another thing I want to talk about, in 2022, you joined the roster of the Charvel guitarist endorsements, alongside, some legends here: Eddie Van Halen, Warren DeMartini from Rat, Jakey Lee. How does it feel to be endorsing that and among these different great rock guitarists, obviously?
Well, it's it's such a huge honor. I feel like there's just such a such a legacy thing, right? It's such a legacy thing. So when you get on a roster like that, it's not to be taken lightly.
Yeah, especially Jakey Lee. He always had a Charvel.
Yeah,
always.
I mean, I'm forever grateful to be a Charvel artist. I'm so thankful to be on the roster. They treat me so nicely. They help me out. I really, and I really truly believe Charvels are the best guitars. I know that's an opinion, but that's how I feel. Every guitar I've picked up, and growing up I've played everything, right? Ibanez, BC Rich, ESP.
Right, I remember they all had their time back in the day. Like BC Rich was really hot for a little while. And
Yeah.
same thing with Ibanez. And then, then the Kramer guitars came out with Eddie's, Floyd Rose has on it stuff. And it was one after the other. But then I think it settled back into some of the older brands
Yeah.
eventually.
But so I think you, and so I remember the first time I picked up a Charvel was a Warranty Martini model. And just being like, oh, whoa, 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 because I mean, because at this point they're owned by Fender, right? But they have that smooth feel that a Fender has, but it has that grit that I think it just pushes it, right? And for me, it's just like now, if you look around this room, there's all Charvel guitars. This whole wall is Charvels. There's even more Charvels, like because it's just I'm crazy about it, but they feel so good, they play so good, and there's just certain like to me, there's just a certain element of, like I said, it's a legacy thing, and it's kind of like a nice little ode to the '80s, right? Even though they're very prominent today and doing great things, it's still like when people think Charvels, they think of that, right? They think of the '80s and they think of that heyday of like when they first came around. And so for me, it's just like I'm so proud to be a Charvel artist.
Very cool. Yeah. So tell us a little bit about the rest of your setup. I always like to get the guitarist's take because sometimes they're experimenting with different new pedals, different new ways of doing things, different new amps, or maybe they have their setup just the way they want it and they don't want to mess with it. What's your take on that? What's your setup like?
So for me, I mean, always a Charvel, right? Just to start with guitar, I'm most comfortable usually with a Charvel Dinky, Charvel San Dimas. Over here, I have one of my touring guitars that I've worked with a lot. This is just a Charvel Dinky. I like modded it Star Wars style because I'm a huge Star Wars fan, and I always like put something like fun on the back and stuff. Guitars usually Charvel, or sometimes because same parent companies, I'll play Jackson sometimes too because I really do like Jacksons as well.
Right.
Um, as far as pedals go or like sound, so for an amp, if I'm going to use an amp, I'll use an EVH. Love EVH. I'm also very grateful to be endorsed by them too. EVH amps, I'll use maybe a 5150, 212, 50-watt head, or sometimes a combo amp. All sound great. I love the sound. They're really fat, especially when you get on that red channel. It really pushes, which is really nice. But honestly, I find myself always using a processing unit as far as sound goes a lot of the time. So when I first started touring, I started using the Line 6 Helix. I love a Line 6 Helix. I absolutely love it. I used most of my touring so far. I used this like huge Line 6 Helix, right? Last tour I did, I sized down to an LT, and I liked it, but I wasn't a huge fan of it. Like there was just a little something I could tell was off, especially when I was playing. Like doing these shows live. I felt like one day it's like, okay, this sounds a little better. No, like I felt like I was actively tone chasing on the road,
Right.
which honestly for me wasn't my favorite feeling.
Right.
Not being like some days like, oh wow, this tone sounds really great, and some days being like, ooh, this is not that good. I'm not really that comfortable, right? But so then this is recent. I started playing around with the Fender Tone Master, which is fairly new still. I remember when I was on the road with Andrew, opening for Kings of Thrash. Jeff Young started using it, and I saw him playing around with it, and like in soundcheck, just playing with the tone and feeling it out. And I was like, oh, that sounds pretty good. So at the end of the last tour I did, I grabbed one, started playing around with it, and I'm like, oh, this is nice. This is really nice. And I started using it local, and I was like, yeah, I think this is going to be it. Because the only thing I was worried about, and this is just how I think, is like, so the reason why I stopped using such a big unit was because when traveling, like, I would have such nerve pain in my back from carrying this thing. And like, I work out. It's not like I'm weak. I work out, but when you're lugging
You're
this like
dragging it around all the
20
time. Yeah.
hours in the airport, sitting
Yeah.
there, flight's getting delayed. You're just sitting there like,
Right. Right.
so at
Right.
that point, I was like, I don't know if I can do that anymore. I don't know if I can do it. It's too strenuous. So that's why I switched to a smaller unit, was because I was able to fit it in my carry-on. I was like, this is perfect. But
Yeah.
now this switch to it's like a nice middle ground, so I could still put it in a carry-on, and it sounds just wonderful. So as far as my rig goes, Charvel definitely, EVH for amps, Fender Tone Master now for my processing unit, and then I am also a big Elixir strings guy. I think they're, for me, they've always been the best. They play smoothly. I'm a player that sweats a lot, like when playing. So, and I mean my hands. So, I would find like when I played DiMarzio or Ernie Ball, they were good, but they would rust through very quick. They
Yeah.
like I would be 2 days in, and it was like, all right,
Yeah, that's the kind of thing that I think Angus used to report a lot because he sweats a ton on his
yeah.
guitars, and they were reporting that they'd have to change them all the time. Yeah,
Yeah. So for me, I was just like, I can't deal with that having to change every 3 days, especially if you're on the road. Forget
right,
about it. So that's
right.
why I started using Elixers, and they were just amazing. They last long. They sound good. I'm proud to be an Elixir artist. They are the sweetest people on the planet. I mean that. I really mean that. They treat me so good. And like I'll go on the road with these things, and they just last. Like I can confidently say I can get through 3 weeks on a tour with the same set of strings just because Elixir just has it covered. They're great with them. They're just it's so smooth, so nice. Definitely a big fan.
Excellent, excellent. So it looks like you got a lot of stuff happening. What are you currently working on now? Is there some other music you're working on, or what are you currently up to?
Yeah, so you know what? At the moment, it's been a lot of writing, right? I think as musicians, we have these phases of sometimes we're on the road a lot, and sometimes we're in the studio, right? I happen to be in the studio phase right now, so been doing some good stuff with Andrew, which has been cool. She's got some cool stuff coming out soon that we've been working on. But otherwise, I've just been honestly really pushing this whole solo Mickey Lyxx project, right? Because I think it's a new grasp to it and just pushing it. I have a phenomenal band behind me. I have singer Jill Joya, who's in Trans-Siberian Orchestra. She was on CBS's Rockstar with Tommy Lee, and she's
She's
so
amazing. Yeah,
yeah,
great.
she's so great, so easy to work with, just a phenomenal vocalist. And then of course I have Steve McQueen as my drummer. Me and him have gone back for years. We've known each other and we just constantly been playing together. So when I do this stuff, I know who I want, and we all work as a team. We work really well together, and so it's just been making this this historic power metal thing come to life, putting out more songs because we have way more on the way. Working on an album that we're getting close to finishing up, and just trying to get okay. Let's start looking into booking it, right? Getting maybe some tours, some festivals, and just taking it from there. Because I think, especially with the European market, I think it's a really nice thing that they'll grasp onto. And I even think here in America, I think this is something that everybody will like because I think everybody likes history to an extent, and everybody likes metal.
Yeah, let's hope that is on the upward trend in the U.S. Definitely, we know
Yeah.
the other countries. Rock and metal is very popular. Not so much in the U.S. lately, unfortunately. We know it's on an upward trend. Thank God. You know what I mean. So we'll see how that changes and plays out. Another question I have for you, and we'll wrap things up here. Any advice you have for younger artists or younger guitarists starting out? Something they should think about or concentrate on? Any words of wisdom for the younger guys?
My only two things I can really, I mean, besides obviously just push and dream, is just one, have fun. That's I think for me that's the most important thing. The guitar I just showed you before, I wrote that on the back of it. Having fun is the biggest thing. If you're not having fun, I don't recommend you do it. You can love things, but if you're not enjoying it and having fun, I I, I don't see the point, right? Like if I'm going out on the road, I'm going out on the road and I'm having fun every night. And for me, fun is like, just playing and traveling and seeing like, being a tourist most of the day and then getting to play in front of all these people and having a lot of fun. And then at the end of the show being like, all right, man, what do we eat? Because food is just as important to me. I'm like, all right, we got to eat now. We got to eat.
Right.
I always have a joke with the tour manager of Andrew, Johan. I'll look at it and be like, dude, what are we having for dinner after we're done? What's going on? Like,
Yeah. What's craft services doing? What are we doing?
yeah, and like half the time it'll be like we're having kebabs and like yes, good. So have fun, please have fun. And my second thing is know your worth, right? Don't let people try to talk down to you. Don't try to tell people you're not worth anything. You know what you're worth. If you're working your way in the scene, it's good to do some stuff and learn and take advice, but know your worth. don't settle for less, because the second you settle for less is when you start to get taken advantage of. Know your worth, because you're worth a lot.
Yep, definitely good advice. So last thing, if you had a tour, a fantasy tour you could be on, who would you want to be on tour with? Any bands or that come to mind? If you could pick just one or two and said, yeah, I want to be, I want to be playing for them or open for them or whatever. Is there a fantasy tour lineup that you ever thought about? I'm sure it has to have gone through your mind at some point, right?
Yeah, I think like every other metalhead who's in a band is going to say this. Iron Maiden. Easy Iron Maiden. I mean, come on. Like they pack out wherever they go. It's
amazing loyal fan base for years. Years.
I'm happy to be part of it,
They have never seemed to have their fan base go down. They're still playing shows, still sound great, Yeah, definitely. Well, Nick, maybe Dave Murray needs a break. You never know.
even if I just got the chance to open for, I would be beyond happy, because that's just that's a dream.
Very, very cool. All right, so you can check out all the dates that are going to be coming up. I know you're going to be booking shows and dates soon, right? So that should be coming up next. Definitely. All right. And you can check out all the music for Mickey Lyxx at MickeyLyxx.com. Mickey, thank you so much for being with us today. Really appreciate it.
Thank you, my friend. Appreciate it. It was great.
All right, that wraps up this episode. Thanks to my guest today, Mickey Lyxx. And to our listeners, we hope you're doing your part by keeping the torch alive and supporting live music wherever you are. Mickey, again, thank you.
Thank you.